Good afternoon. My name is Robert Walker, and I'm brand manager for retirementhomes.com. Welcome to our March webinar. Today's presentation, the 10 cheapest and best ways to boost occupancy, will share tips and strategies for how senior living professionals can make simple changes which can help increase the number of prospects they receive at their senior living communities. There will be a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. To ask a question, raise your hand in the toolbar to the right, and time permitting, your question will be answered. Will be about probably 45 minutes or so. The session will be recorded, so don't worry about scribbling down every little note from every slide. The slides will be sent to you as well. So sit back, take things in, and hopefully we'll all learn. I'll learn at least a thing or two today. So a little bit, of course, about retirementhomes.com. I think most of you, some of you at least, are certainly familiar with us. We are the world's largest, most comprehensive cloud-based senior living directory. We work senior living marketing. We're a resource, of course, for seniors and baby boomers. But basically, at our core, we feel that we increase occupancy for senior living communities. So a little bit of background, why this webinar? What exactly is the purpose of this? Now, of course, the reason you're on today is because, obviously, you want to increase occupancy at your community. Of course, it's the chief goal for any senior living operator. But really to talk a little bit about what I hope to offer today, what we're necessarily not hearing elsewhere, and what might be a good takeaway. So one, of course, the challenge of occupancy is that for many communities, oftentimes, really the break-even point, the point of profitability, again, for many communities is the 90% or 90+% area. So we're not talking about necessarily a huge margin here. So it's an area where we really have to get things right, and we not just have to occasionally hit 90, 95, 98% occupancy, we have to pretty consistently be hitting that area. Second, of course, competition, and I'm not simply speaking of other senior living communities, but competition in terms of, for many of you, is probably home care. It could be congregate housing, it could be CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities, where someone comes in when they're 65 years old, they're independent, they're active, they're playing golf 3 days a week, but as it moves on, you know, they're going to be living at that community for the next 30 years. You know, they go from active living to independent living to assisted living, you know, to skilled nursing, and, you know, eventually that's it. So competition, the competitive landscape is changing. And then, of course, changing demographics. We've talked about this in the past with Irving Stackpole, who's done a couple of our webinars in the past, is really about how, you know, it's very counterintuitive because we hear, you know, aging population growing, you know, growing senior cohort, but the truth is that's only sort of true because the average age of someone moving into an assisted living community is 87 years old, and yet the oldest baby boomers are only 67 years old today. So on average, the first wave of baby boomers will not be reaching, again, on average, assisted living communities for the next 20 years. So this is why, you know, many of you may be sitting there, you may have stagnating occupancy rates or maybe even decreasing occupancy rates, and you're thinking, this doesn't make any sense. Where is this aging population? But the truth is that aging population is not, on average, going to be there for the next 20 years. So this is, again, it's the counterintuitive data, but you have to sort of think of it sort of as a snake that just swallowed a boar, right? This boar is moving its way through the snake's body, but it's not there yet. So this is, again, why the importance of finding these inexpensive and effective ways of increasing occupancy is so important because, yes, if we were talking, you know, March webinar in the year 2035, I think it would be a different story. But today it's very different, very competitive, because, quite frankly, the seniors who are passing away are not being replaced, at least not for the next decade and a half or 2 decades. So that's the importance for today. So I'm going to be talking about 10 tools, you know, as I mentioned in the headline or in the title. So this is the first tool, make yourself found online. So 10 cheapest and most effective ways. So this is the first way, tool way, number one. And again, retirementhomes.com, of course, you know, there's certainly a online marketing bent. It's just what we do, what we're good at, what we know, what we can measure. So this is a bit of a bent, but really it's going to touch on a lot of different areas. So one, make yourself found online. So again, you go into Google, you know, you type in whatever city you live in, you know, blank Chinese restaurant, blank car dealership, blank hair salon, whatever it is you're looking for. Obviously, you want the resources which are going to be found on the first page. And on average, people are not going to search what they're not seeing on the first page. And again, you see here in the search results after the first page, you see a dramatic decline. 85. Once you're on the second page, you've already lost 85% of traffic. Once you're on the third page, you've lost 90%. By the time you're on the fifth page, you've lost 95%. By the time you're on the 10th page, it's in the low single digits. So if you're not getting on the first, second, or third page, really with the first page gobbles everything up. But if you're really not getting there, you're missing out on an awful lot of business. So it's important to really make sure that you are having access to that audience, and how to have access to that is the question. So, okay, Robert, obviously you want to make yourself found online. How do I go about doing that? So here's just a very quick and dirty, of course, overview. Please don't take this, I'm sure you won't, as comprehensive, but here's just an overview as to some of the ways, how does one company, how does my competitor, when you type in, CCRC or skilled nursing, Tucson, Arizona, why does my competitor show up first page and I'm on the second page? So there's a lot of different reasons for that. One is SEO. Many of you familiar, search engine optimization. We can call that earned placement or unpaid listing. In other words, you Google something, something's there because Google wants you to find the most relevant. If I go into Google and I search, again, Chinese restaurant, Toronto, Google wants me to find something relevant, because if I don't find something relevant, I'm not going to be using Google anymore. So ultimately, that plays into a lot of things about links, keywords. In other words, Google wants me to find things that are relevant, so I need to make my website relevant. We'll talk in more detail about content marketing, things like that. And at the bottom there, panda, penguin, and hummingbird. Every year or so, Google, which of course represents 2/3 of all search engine traffic, releases a new algorithm. Algorithm basically means that how does Google determine which pages should be placed where? And so, one was in 2011, one was 2012, Hummingbird was in 2013. And basically what it said was that the more relevant your page is to what people are looking for, the more highly you'll be placed. And what's remarkable about what Google's done is they're not just basing it based on search terms, they're basing it on trying to read what the end user is searching for. They're trying to read their minds, because if they're looking for, retirement home Florida, they're not just looking for information about a retirement home Florida, they're looking for pricing. So does your website have pricing on it? They're looking for, who knows, are people looking at ratio of care? Is that another related search term that people are looking for? Are people looking for amenities or day trips or menus, things like that. So again, it's not just about, and again, that's where that industry research, market research comes along, and this is what we do at retirementhomes.com as well, is that it's very important to not simply say, okay, what are the right keywords? If someone searches retirement home Miami or Boca Raton, we're there. People want to be also finding the information that's relevant. So what's up to you is to think about, okay, what information, if I was on Google looking, do I also want to find? And again, that's the research. So that plays into the SEO. That'll help you, boost your numbers there. And again, links, higher quality links to your site. So associations, directories, obviously like retirementhomes.com. Google wants links to your site to count for something, because that's how Google can determine how relevant and how important your site is. If you have a website and nobody links to you, Google's computers will look at you and say, oh, you must not be so relevant because nobody's directing to you. So obviously you want to be going out there, you want to be building links from relevant websites. Again, not, Tom, Dick, or Harry, or some developer who tells you he can build 100 links to your site. You want real value ones. Google's smart enough to know what a legitimate, active, dynamic website is going to be. Now, obviously, directories as well. Directories tend to rank quite highly on Google because of the amount of content we have. So you want to get links from there, like retirement homes. And again, keywords. I talked about that. What do you optimize for? When people look for you, are they looking for assisted living, Alzheimer's care, independent living, and so on? So you want to have those terms consistently on your page. SEM, the second bullet point there, is something called search engine marketing. Essentially, those are paid ads. And again, we have a different webinar that we've done on the ABCs of online marketing. And that's basically where you're paying per click. So someone goes on, you bid on different clicks, different prices, and someone, 30 cents a, every time someone clicks your page from Google, from your ad, you're dinged 30 cents. So it's a different kind. It's not based on merit, if you will. It's just based on pay, but, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that either. The only thing is that you're not going to get the results that organic search will get just by virtue of that people, don't trust ads as much as they'll trust something that Google invariably gives them by merit itself. Two, of course, social media. And, of course, you have Willy Wonka there, a meme. Oh, you think social media is just a trend? Tell me more about how you reach millions of customers daily. So, of course, particularly in the senior living field, so many of us can be very concerned about social media. We'll talk about reviews as well. What if somebody said something bad? Someone writes on my Facebook page, oh, my mother was, I came in the other day and she had a bruise, or my father says he's not treated well, so on and so forth. We're concerned about sort of opening up the floodgates, what that will mean, because, listen, that will not necessarily, for every good interaction we'll have, we can have a bad one. Or even if only 1% of our interactions are bad, geez, who wants that? I'm willing to overcome or overlook the good ones for the bad. And ultimately, I think that this is a flawed approach, because ultimately we have to be taking on that risk if we want to be growing our businesses. So it's not just that more seniors are online before, but that they are more engaged than ever before. And again, reviews, I'll talk about that in a bit. But what does that mean? It means that seniors aren't simply going onto Google anymore to look at pictures of their grandkids or cat videos. They are learning about how to make decisions. They're learning about what their friends are saying. They're sharing things, in the same way that if you had terrible service at, at a local establishment or vendor, and it was really bad, you might share that with your friends. You might get that word out. You wouldn't leaflet the neighborhood anymore. You'd post, you'd post something on your social media platforms about that. So in the same way, seniors are doing it themselves. And again, there's a good way to do it and there's a bad way to do it. It's not just about social media in general. You want to be engaging. You want to be funny. You want to be relevant. You want to be thought-provoking. It's not just about, sharing a new promotion you have. It's about making people want to follow you because you are a trendsetter. And ultimately, when we talk about social media, there are three basic ways to engage. One is to create your own content. So what does that mean, create your own content? Gosh, it could be anything from, sort of on a more fundamental level. Our local resident, Sally Smith, is turning 102 today. Here are her children and grandchildren and her descendants and so on. A big party, great. Okay, so that's content that you're creating on your own. It could be a contest on your own. It could be, resident contest, who knows, we had, St. Patrick's Day, who had the best costume. It could be, Halloween, who had the best, costume, who made the best jack-o'-lantern. Excuse me. So again, there's a lot of different ways to create that content. If you're not in that kind of a community, if you're a vendor, it could be, a contest in the sense of, well, I mean, listen, retirementhomes.com, we have the Mamba Awards every year. Many of you have entered that and are familiar with that, the Mature Online Marketing Business Achievement. So we create our own content. We allow people to really crowdsource, putting it in, talking about how they've been the best at, their own marketing and their best websites and their best radio ads and TV ads and so on. So it's about getting that content and getting people to share it with you. So it's not necessarily that you have to have someone who does that by yourself. Again, A, you can crowdsource that, having other people do that. B, you can freelance that. Retirementhomes.com, we do a lot of that for clients as well. But really, it's about getting content that's engaging, thought-provoking, interesting, and getting that out to your client audience. And again, what they're interested in. It's not about, hey, we have a new special this month, call us. That's benefiting you. What benefits them is that, hey, here's a new article from WebMD talking about how 20 minutes of exercise a day can help you live to 100. That's interesting. What does your audience want to read? So again, it's approaching it in that perspective. Second is share. And again, that leads into what I was talking about WebMD. You can create your own content, but you can also share somebody else's content, because there's nothing wrong with if you go online and you see, as I said, WebMD or AARP or here in Canada, CARP or elsewhere, they have content that's interesting or funny, engaging, insightful, so on, share it. It doesn't hurt your brand, it enhances it, because one, you are associating yourself with somebody else, but two, by nature, your followers and stakeholders will look at you and say, oh wow, shady Alzheimer's home. These guys have a lot of these guys have a lot of relevant content. They're really connected. Wow, I'm going to follow them. So again, you don't have to share your own. You don't have to create your own content, although that's obviously ideal, just because if you're creating it in-house and messaging everything, you're keeping control of the messaging. But sharing it is very valuable as well. And then, of course, third is converse. You don't necessarily have to do all of the, it doesn't have to be all content all the time. You can be engaging, following, interacting with other communities. Again, I'm using a lot of Facebook analogy, but this can be done on LinkedIn. There's different stakeholders there. Engage and be insightful and offer your thoughts. Again, it's about usefulness. It's not just about selling, selling, selling. That will get around to it. If you're offering good value, people will want to know what you have to say, and they'll continue to engage with you. But you can go, again, onto Twitter, start conversations, ask questions, answer questions, and so on. It's another way to keep that conversation going. So again, there's really 3 ways to engage. One is create your own content. Second is share somebody else's content. And third is converse. In other words, start a conversation or jump into someone else's conversation. And again, for those of you as well, a couple people have asked, I will be sending out the slide deck. I will be sending out a recording. So don't worry about trying to feverishly write everything down. Just take the salient points now because we're going to be sending this out afterwards as well. Third, be sticky. I'll let you look at that first for those who can't see or can't make that out. This is from the Oatmeal. It's a website. So Google, really why Google has 2/3 of search results is because they are relevant. So when you type in history of arcades, again, Google says, I know what you want. Here's a Wikipedia article on arcade history, whereas Bing, maybe you've experienced this yourself. Look how cool this interactive map of Peru is. Love me. So really, also the joke, of course, Bing has invested a lot of time and money into really cool maps. I think they're really interesting myself. But again, the idea is you want to be sticky. What does sticky mean is that when people come to your site, you want to keep them there. So you want to keep them there. What's so great about Wikipedia is that Wikipedia is just a rabbit hole. You could spend your lifetime on Wikipedia because one thing takes you to something else, takes you to something else, takes you to something else. You could never leave because it has everything you need there. So this is what your website should be. Your website should be sticky. So when someone comes to your site, they should stay there because you have everything there. Again, it doesn't mean that you're giving information you don't want to give. So I talked about pricing earlier. It may be that as part of the consultative sales process, you don't want to have pricing on your website because if your home is a little on the pricier side, someone might look at the price on your website, say, oh, that's out of my price range, and not contact you at all. So obviously, there's an asterisk, there's a case-by-case situation here, but what really sticky means is that you're engaging and you have information and relevance that doesn't make people want to leave. So what does that mean? From a design perspective, how do you do that? You reduce clutter. You make it simple. This isn't Bob's homepage from 1997. This is, we're sophisticated, so, you want to reduce clutter, easy navigation, make it simple, make it smooth, make it easy for people to contact you. And we're going to talk a little bit about inbound marketing as well in a few topics. So what does that mean and how that can help you engage more and find people who are coming to you already. So again, it's reducing clutter, making it simple, navigation. And again, a lot of the people here, a lot of your owners, operators, managers, administrators are not necessarily your web people, but again, it's making sure these things are done, making sure, FAQ, frequently asked questions, site maps, things like that. Basically, in a nutshell, making sure that your website is easily navigated, that you are sending people, and that no matter where they go on your website, they can contact you, right? So there shouldn't just be one contact page at the top right side of your website. There should be a contact page on every single page. Very easy. Again, spoon feed people. The way I'm almost talking about website visitors is as if they're simpletons, but the truth is we have to make things as easy, as straightforward, and again, spoon feed them. If there's one thing you take away from today's webinar, it's that the more we spoon feed prospects, the easier it is for them to ultimately connect with us and, of course, eventually make that buying decision. So talk a little bit, really, that top half about navigation, tips and techniques and branding, but really about branding specifically. When I talk about that, I don't just mean having your logo. When I say branding, it really ties in, it's more holistic. It talks about what is your unique value proposition, and is that made clear on your website? When people come to your website, are you, your states or provinces or countries #1 blank? Do you offer the best price? Do you offer the best food? Do you offer the most amenities, the most trips? Again, you probably know, and certainly if you don't, it's absolutely worth spending time thinking about how to articulate that unique value proposition. But the idea is to, as well, to make sure that not just you know it, but that that's clear in all of your collateral. And I talked about be sticky on your website because this is just sort of talking about your website now, but make sure that that unique value proposition, that brand, is consistently applied everywhere. And absolutely that's in your print collateral as well. That's on your phone system. That's everywhere, your signage outside the building, everything, your email signatures, that everybody knows, what it is. If they think your retirement community, your assisted living community, your skilled nursing, CCRC, your vendor, whatever it is, they know exactly what you do and how you're different from the competition. But again, that needs to be present on your website as well. And again, that really is related to the idea of having a distinctive voice as well. Who is really, if you read the text, the content on your website, what voice does it sound like? Does it sound like Morgan Freeman? Does it sound like, B. Arthur from the Golden Girls? Does it sound like James Earl Jones? What voice does this sound like? What perspective does it? What I mean by that, if you're not on the same page, what I mean by that is that who is your target audience? Let's say, again, you are sort of Golden Girls. So let's say you are a golf community in Scottsdale, Arizona. Let's say you're more from Active or the Villages at Florida, something like that. That's your target audience. So your target audience are not baby, sort of people in their 50s who are looking for mom who's not doing well. Your target audience, again, obviously better than I, your target audience is whatever demographics, probably, higher income, mid to late 60s, so on and so forth. So who are they going to listen to? Who are they going to hear? Who do they identify with? If you are a skilled nursing, it's probably going to be the oldest daughter, probably in her late 50s to mid-60s. So very different voices, very different target audiences. But again, that's the kind of voice that you need to be making sure that is distinctive and, again, consistently applied on your website as well as all collateral as well. Tool 4, get more referrals. Obviously, that's hopefully a truism, fairly straightforward. How do we get more referrals? Again, this is not just about internet marketing. This is about what are some inexpensive ways you can get more leads for your community. So obviously, one, get more referrals, contests. Have more contests. I mean, again, what that means is, and they can mean any different things, and it's based on the type of business, based on your audience, based on your competitive landscape, your geographic location, your socioeconomic, I mean, everything like that. It's about creating, these positive relationships, but most importantly, it's about getting contact information. It's about getting sure that everybody who comes in your door, you're getting their name, you're getting their email, you're getting their phone number, you are getting why are they here? Visiting mom, okay, fine, is there a sign-in sheet? There certainly could be there, but it's about making sure that everybody who comes in, you're growing this list, because again, those people, even somebody as simple as coming in for an open house because you have some event happening. Capture it, make sure you have it, track it. And again, we'll talk about the importance of all tracking and everything like that. But make sure that these people, you have a list that's constantly growing. And the more that your list is growing of stakeholders and prospects, the more likely you're going to get more leads and referrals. Make sure when we have a contest, make sure it could be, if you refer somebody who moves in here, you get $1,000. Right? You get, if you're a current resident and you bring in a friend, you get a month's free rent. Whatever it is. I mean, this is a big difference for a lot of people. So again, there's a way to think about it non-linearly. It's not just about existing people in your building. It's about people outside the building. But again, make sure those people in your building, depending on the care type, make sure that they're doing it. And let's say that you are Alzheimer's or skilled nursing, and the existing residents, they're not going to be referring anybody because they don't have the wherewithal to do that. What if their friends, what if sort of their families, that if your loved one lives here, if you refer somebody else, your mother or father gets a month free. Okay, listen, people aren't going to do it if they don't think it's a good place, but If they think it's a good place, yeah, that could just be enough to grease the wheels to get somebody new in. So again, make sure that you're always looking for opportunities there. Talking about hospital and medical outreach, again, this really spans the whole spectrum or the continuum of care as well, obviously more on the heavier level, but even if you're independent living, if people are looking for convalescent care and for respite care, even if they're only there for a week, 2 weeks, a month, again, if your community can accommodate that, make sure that that your home is reaching out and is top of mind for these communities. Again, that could be hospitals, that could be health clinics, that could be doctors, social workers. Again, obviously hard to be general when we're talking about different care types and different audiences, but really the idea is that you want to be top of mind for these people. So if they have a client or a patient who's taken a fall, who maybe they just need, bed rest for a couple weeks, listen, can you accommodate that? Do you want that? If so, you want to be top of mind. Competitors as well. And again, this, can be a little bit more tricky, but not necessarily so. Again, if you have a particular care type that, let's say, somebody else can't accommodate, or you can accommodate that, they can't, or they can accommodate that you can't, listen, try to pass referrals, try to do a little bit of a quid pro quo. I'll give you something you can mind. If you are an expensive community or you have a care type and someone comes in and it's just not a right fit, I mean, no matter how you sell it, it's just not right for them, why don't you get their information, get their name, and give it to a competitor. Give it to somebody who actually who's a good fit for it, and tell them, and tell the person, say, listen, I don't think that we can do it, but you know what, I'm going to do some research, I'm going to do some homework. I think there's a couple other places that might be a better fit. You get all their contact info, you call that place at the other side of town, you say, hi, it's Bob from, so-and-so ABC community. Someone came in here, it's just not a right fit, but I think it might be a good fit for you. Here's their name, email, telephone, good luck. That can create a lot of goodwill that can, of course, end up, and certainly I've done this in the past, it's worked well. And again, obviously that there can be complications that, based on different chains and competitive landscape and so on. But again, it's not something necessarily, unless you have to, but it's something that you don't necessarily want to preclude because it's a good opportunity to get more leads. And as promised, I'm going to talk about a little bit about inbound marketing. I'm going to define what that means and get that image. We're switching to inbound today. You got that? So that baby means business. And why does that baby mean business? So what inbound marketing really means, of course, as opposed to outbound marketing. So outbound marketing might be, it could be anything from, sort of any kind of outreach where you are initiating contact. So email can be inbound or outbound marketing, but really outbound basically where you throw something out and you hope something sticks. Inbound marketing says, people are already on my website. People are already calling me. People are already making touch with us, really with respect to specifically online. But let's say I get 100 people on my website every day, right? I get about 3,000 unique visitors a month. Okay, for some communities that's small. For some communities, that's pretty good. The question is, how many of these people are contacting you? How many of these people are reaching out to you? And again, I talked about earlier making sure that everywhere on your website, it's easy for people to reach you. It's making sure that you need to do an audit of your own website. So you go through and you say, okay, again, depending on care type, if I'm an independent living community or active living, I might be someone as young as 60, 65, 70, 75. If I'm, again, skilled nursing, I'm probably going to be an adult child of someone who's a prospective resident. But is it easy to contact me? Is it easy to find the pertinent information that I want? You're probably familiar with, those contact sheets, right? You could contact us and you get a form. Personally, I always find those just a little bit of a turn-off because I always sort of wonder if someone's ever going to get that email because it's impersonal. Is there a name? Is there a face? Is there an email address I can reach? Yes, I might get spam, and that's just something, you're going to have to deal with on your own, but I think you're going to get more quality emails. But inbound marketing really means that you want to have a page everywhere on your website. Again, when I say everywhere, I mean within the bounds of reason, something that is seamless within your site that allows for maximum lead generation. So again, not just on the top right where it says contact us or, speak to our sales representative now, but even somewhere where it says, a different page about menu, a sample menu, or about our amenities or our day trips. You have something that has a picture of a trip, a ski trip, or or something that's happening, of your award-winning dishes that your chef presented, great. On that page, there should be something that says, look appetizing, click here to schedule a free tour and a complimentary lunch, right? That should be everywhere. And again, it's everywhere with an asterisk. That means obviously within the bounds of reason, but that means that you should be making your website work for you. So when you're asleep at night, your website is selling. In the same way that a sales professional, always be closing, always be selling, your website should be selling for you too. So you want to be not just capturing those leads, but capturing the pertinent information. And again, obviously, if you're not a tech person, that's not necessarily something you can develop for yourself, but it's something that you definitely would want to be made change. And again, retirementhomes.com, we absolutely do that. So, please call us for that. It's something that obviously we specialize in. So it's about understanding that your website, listen, it should be selling for you, and that's why that baby on the right is serious about switching to inbound marketing. So tool 6 is content marketing. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Many of you are familiar with that. Many of you may not be. But what exactly does content marketing mean? So content marketing means using content, and what that can mean anything. It can mean videos, blogs, articles, webinars, a fireside chat. It really could mean any manner of audiovisual information you have on your website that is helping to feed the buying cycle. And again, that's really the principle here, is that content isn't just for the sake of content. Content should always be feeding the buying cycle. Now again, this is what I talked about just in the last slide about inbound marketing, about how getting your website should be selling for you. Content should be selling for you. And I talked earlier about Google algorithms. So you had Penguin and Panda, and in 2013 you had Google Hummingbird, and you see a picture of that hummingbird there. And that's really where Google is pushing a lot more content marketing. So what does that mean? It means that Google, I talked a little bit about earlier, how Google is now trying to think a little bit ahead, or a lot ahead. It's incredible what they can do, is to say, okay, somebody is Googling, again, retirement home, Scottsdale, Arizona, right? Just it's popular, or Miami Beach, popular retirement destinations, retirement home, so on. So you would say, okay, once they found it, we have the word retirement home all over our website, and after all, we're a retirement home there, it's relevant, they'll find us, great. But Google is taking that a step further. Google is saying, okay, the people who are searching retirement home Miami aren't just searching retirement home Miami, right? They're also searching retirement home Miami price. They're also searching retirement home Miami healthcare, retirement home Miami amenities, location, proximity to beach, whatever it is. So again, you want to make sure that that content is on your website as well. Again, when I talked about price, doesn't necessarily mean you have your price there, but it can mean you talk about your price. It could be how competitive it is, how all-inclusive it is. It could be talking about how, maybe if you're not-for-profit, part of it's tax deductible. Who knows what it is? But make sure that, again, you're feeding into what that is. So, and again, the one lesson to take away from this, the content marketing angle, is that how Google wants you, perhaps paradoxically, to not be focusing on Google, but to be focusing on the visitor. So if we were doing this webinar 5 years ago, I would say you should be talking keywords, keywords, keywords. Today, it's not about keywords. Again, it's not just about using that word pricing. It's about making sure that it's actually relevant, because Google can know whether what you're saying is actually about pricing or whether you've just sort of surreptitiously thrown in a keyword there. So you want to be focusing on the visitors. So the visitors who are coming to your website, and again, if you don't use Google Analytics, definitely get your tech guys or tech gals to set you up with that, so you can be measuring that yourself. You don't need to be a techie to do it, but it's a hugely valuable tool. But so you can know how people are finding you, what search terms they're using. So again, Google Trends is another tool as well to know what people are looking for. But again, these are the types of approaches that you need to be taking, where you are thinking about putting yourself in the perspective of not a Google algorithm computer, but from the perspective of, again, Sally Smith, who lives in, whatever town, who's looking for your community, either for herself or her mother or what have you. Sell to her. In the same way you sell to her, and you wouldn't sell to, a hospital administrator. If someone comes in off the street, for a walk-in tour, and you're telling them about your community, you're talking to him or her differently than you would talk to, again, a social worker at a hospital. So talk to the audience. So in the same way that your website should be talking to the audience. Your tours talk to the right audience, so your website should be doing the same as well. And this little infographic, what that really means here is that, so let's say, this is an example of an accountant. So let's say you have an accounting practice or an accounting firm. That's what you do. So when people are browsing your website, you want to be answering the question, what is accounting practice? What is your service, that you do? How does it help me? How does it help me save me money? So that's when you're browsing, just getting that information. When you're getting to considering stage, you want to be answering the questions of how do I sign up with you? How do I maintain that relationship with you? How do I, et cetera, et cetera? What are the benefits and so on? So as you can see, it's getting a little bit more analytical. It's getting a little bit more in-depth. And then when you're ready to buy, okay, what are your hourly fees? What are your monthly fees? How do I make this decision, and how do I sort of clinch the deal now? So again, that's what sort of in a crux what content marketing is about the reader. It's not Google, so it's making sure that you're answering those questions as people approach the buying cycle. And again, that's what Google, or rather, that's what content should be doing. Content should be not just making sure your website is active so you have the right keywords through Google. I mean, that's true, but beyond that, and more fundamentally than that, your content should be feeding the buying cycle. So that's the takeaway to take from content marketing there. Tool 7, media relations and PR. Now, many of you, certainly I know are very good at this. I think that there's always room for improvement. Most fundamentally, do you have a media database? Do you have, is it in Excel or Google spreadsheets, whatever it is, a database of local media? Again, we're talking about community papers. You can be larger ones as well. It doesn't have to be, national or regional newspapers or media outlets. Local ones, because after all, that's really your strongest audience, and this is where people are more likely to read it. So do you have a database there? Are you in constant contact with these people? Segmented, of course, as well. You have health, lifestyle, etc. If you, for example, again, depending on, hard to be vague, general when you have so many different, or hard to be specific when we're talking to so many different people on the webinar today, but, let's say you are, again, a skilled nursing or a CCRC, something which offers a higher level of care. So you want to be in touch with health reporters for different reasons than lifestyle reporters. If there's a lifestyle reporter at your local publication, they're not probably interested in, let's say that you're affiliated with the university and they've made a breakthrough in a kind of healthcare research. Know your audience. So in the same way you know your audience, know your media contact. You don't want to reach out to them for something that's irrelevant, because that's the quickest and most surefire way to get yourself off their list. Make sure that you're reaching out to them, regularly, not too often, but for something that's relevant. So again, when they hear from you, they know it's something important. When you have fun events, again, you're talking about a community paper. If it's your 10th or 20th anniversary, or you're having a big party, or if it's someone's 110th birthday, whatever it is that's newsworthy. Again, it could be just proximity-wise and sort of just out of curiosity, but absolutely reach out to them, tell them about it, get them, even if it's just a standalone picture and a caption. Why not? Fantastic. And again, interesting residence, there's a great idea. News tie-in. So here's an interesting idea. I worked, in the past in the Alzheimer's industry, and one of the things, which, it was a good success for me. It was a minor thing, but it worked out really well. Is that there was a news story in the neighborhood or in the city that somebody who had dementia had disappeared. Now, they were found the next day, but it was in the paper, front page, this person had disappeared, and it was a few months earlier someone else had also disappeared and died. And of course, it was only a few months ago, Casey Kasem, the former radio personality, had, with dementia, had passed away, had, again, wandered and passed away. So it's newsworthy and it's in people's mind. So as an Alzheimer's home, I said, you know what, let's call media and let's talk about what our home does to talk about wandering residents. What are the technologies, what are the therapies, what are the infrastructure we have to take care of that. So you're essentially inserting yourself into the conversation where you don't necessarily have anything to do with it. I mean, no one escaped from your home. I mean, again, you don't want to be using jail terminology, escape, and, facility, things like that. But listen, you are not necessarily in the news, but it's a great opportunity to talk about how wow, geez, very tragic or very, very relieving how that person was found. You know what, at our home, this is how we prevent that. So the same, adult daughter, 53-year-old daughter who reads, oh my gosh, my mom has Alzheimer's and she lives at home. Oh my gosh, what would happen if she ran away? Her mind is racing. How good would it be to have the local news cover you even for 45 seconds about how your home does something like that? So again, the opportunities are endless. Think about how how you can tie yourself into that conversation. Partnership opportunities, tool number 8. Really what I'm saying here is how can you find other stakeholders with whom you have common audience, mutual benefit, shared opportunities for clients. So, again, what does that mean? If there's mutual benefit, it means online sources, it means websites, obviously directories, can include media. This is really more, I think, of a philosophy. It's that always be on the lookout for opportunities where you can find people who need you as much as you need them, who can send you leads, referrals, and clients in the same way that you can send it to them. So it's about just constantly being on the lookout. And again, talked about competitors. Maybe it's the competitor. Maybe it's a blog. Maybe it's a local news station. Maybe it's a hospital. Maybe you can do something and be called an official or part sponsor of something. Who knows? Maybe it's a local cancer society. Maybe it's a local kids group. Maybe you can do something with kids. High school kids. Give them volunteer hours or give them. Who knows what? Again, there's sort of that. We could be here forever talking about these ideas. But this isn't just from a PR perspective, although that certainly is a big part of it, but it's more fundamentally about seeking to build stakeholders in all these disparate different groups so you can be finding lead generation and referral sources because, again, always feed the buying cycle. This is not just about, even getting in the local news for 45 seconds. It's not about getting on the local news for 45 seconds. It's about feeding the buying cycle. It's about maintaining or achieving and maintaining 100% occupancy. Tool 9, reviews. Now, this is similar in a sense to what I was talking about earlier with social media in the sense that, oh my gosh, who wants to have reviews about my community? Because even if 99 people say, fantastic, I love it here, or my mother loves it here, or whatever it is, there's always one person who, even if it's completely false, especially if it's false, who wants one bad apple to ruin the rest? Because after all, we can read 100 reviews about something, we read one bad thing, and, oh, geez, doesn't that look bad? But the truth is, we absolutely should be doing that. And even bad reviews are good because they show that it's sincere and that it's real and it's not fake. So why is it important? Reviews are, certainly online reviews, are absolutely proven to have increased engagement and involvement. So when I see reviews, particularly if I see not a great review, I mean, obviously if it's all bad reviews, that's worrying. But if I have some good reviews or mostly good reviews and maybe 1 or 2 bad reviews, it shows me, okay, listen, some people had bad experience. But the truth is, if 90% of them are good, it was probably just an exception to the rule. Something happened, maybe it was, that person, something wrong with that relationship, but, it's probably a good relationship overall, probably a good home. But if I see consistent reviews, it means that, these guys are pleasing most people. And it means that it's sincere. It means these guys are in the community. It means these guys aren't afraid of somebody saying something bad. Because oftentimes, again, perceived, if you don't have comment section, you don't have reviews, you're not allowing people to voice their opinions, what does it look like, right? It looks like you're hiding something. Whereas if you have it out and, listen, 90% of people say something good, 10% say something bad, that's going to reflect better than if you don't have any leads at all or if you don't have any reviews at all. So create your own review system on your website. Allow people to write reviews, to have stars, based on that. Yelp, of course, is a big review. RetirementHomes.com, we have a review, and, we launched it about a year ago or a little over a year ago. And, again, it was a great opportunity. And, contact me. My contact's at the end of the webinar as well. It's a great opportunity to allow your stakeholders to at least have a perception of involvement with you, right? That they are helping to have their voice heard. And after all, don't we all want to have our voice heard? Don't we all want to have a seat at the table, you know, a voice in the conversation, and ultimately one small spoke in the wheel? So absolutely we do. So again, help accommodate people, help reviews, because not only is it good for your own brand, but it also helps people make it feel like they're part of the conversation, and when they do that, they're more likely to make a decision because they feel like you're really listening to them. And then, of course, I'm going to wrap up with our 10th tip here, effective tours and open houses. Now, of course, you undoubtedly do tours. How else are people moving in? And you probably do open houses. Maybe not, you know, if there's a care type or other reason you're not doing tours, or open houses, rather. But again, do you know your conversion rate? In other words, of the 100 people who call, what percentage of them turn into tours? What percentage of them do you want to turn into tours? Of the number of tours who come in, so let's say you have 100 calls in a period, or just of 100 calls, how many of them turn into tours? Let's say 10 of them. Okay, that doesn't sound so high. Can it be higher? Why is it, you know, why is it lower? If it's 50, what was it 2 years ago, a year ago, and so on? How does that change? Seasonally, is it really high in January after Christmas time? People see grandma's doing so well. Is it in the summertime when the weather's good? Measure these things, right? What are these ratios, and when does that change? And then again, tours to contracts. So if you have, you know, for every 100 people, 50 of them, you know, who call in, 50 of them turn into tours. Of those 50 people who do tours, how many of them turn into move-ins? 10, 5, 1, 80, you know, 80% of them? Who knows? That's why, again, you need to know those numbers. And again, that effective measuring is extremely important. And again, what do we showcase to prospects when we talk about effective tours? So, for example, if you are an increased, you know, let's say skilled nursing home, and you might have a variety, do you have some people who are really at one, let me be blunt here. Let's say you run an independent living community, okay? And you're an independent living community. Not everybody is at the same perspective. Some people are a little bit worse off. Some people are a little bit better off. Do you schedule for your tours so make sure that you have the best face on, or the face that best reflects your demographics? Now, I'm being diplomatic, but basically what I mean is that if your community brands itself as an independent or active living community, and 5% of your residents are not really in that criteria, you're not kicking them out anytime soon, but they don't really fit that, are you giving tours that somehow showcase those people? Because if you do, you're being inconsistent, because you're showing people how independent living your community is, but you're also showing, you know what, it's not really all that independent. So, you know, are there particular times when those people have naps? Are there particular times when those people, you know, are, you know, they play euchre in a particular room that, you know, you could showcase? Again, it's not misrepresenting at all, because if there 95% of people aren't in that situation, you want to showcase the 95%. But human nature is such that if I see that 1%, it could be an exception. That's all I will focus on. So make sure when you have open houses and tours, they're not just open houses, but they're effective in that you show people exactly what you want to show people. So that's what I mean when I say, what do you showcase to prospects? And really, when I talk about measurement and value, this is a Dilbert cartoon here. The pointy-haired boss is saying, we plan too much. From now on, we'll have a bias for action. I want posters that proclaim our commitment to action. I want them soon. Measure once, cut twice. I like it. So obviously, that's a complete reverse of, you know, measure twice, cut once. You know, measure once and cut twice, he's saying here. Basically, we need to know our return on investment. And RODI. So RODI means return on time investment. Basically, what that means is sweat equity, right? It's not just about how much money you've spent on tours, open houses, Facebook ads, radio ads, so on. It means how much time are you spending? If you spend 6 weeks on a project, well, geez, they're paying you, you know, a salary or an hourly rate or whatever it is. So you're costing the money just your time, and it's time that you could be doing something else. So again, you need to measure your own financial return on investment as well as return on time invested. And again, you want to be constantly measuring. And this is ultimately why of these 10 tips, you know, so many of them had to do with an online bent, is because obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but certainly for us, is that online, it allows for that tracking, better measurement, better return on investment, because you know exactly where your dollars are going in a much better way than anywhere else. And so obviously that's why certainly we talked a lot about that. So I'll now leave time for questions. If you have any questions, again, your toolbar to the right, you should be able to just put in a question there, and I'd be happy to answer that. We don't have time for everything. I certainly can correspond one-on-one. But if you do have any questions, certainly happy to do that. Okay, so somebody asks here, Sandra asks, what is the best way to measure ROI and ROTI? Okay, so thank you, Sandra. So what I mean by that, and we'll skip just back here, is basically, and obviously it depends on the type of measurement that we're doing. Let's talk about, let's just talk about, for example, return on time invested, for example. So let's say that you're talking about one lead here. You're talking about a lead, and this lead, if they move in, they're going to be bringing in X number of dollars into your home. Okay. Every month, and the average length of stay is going to be so on. So you want to make sure, okay, how much time are you spending on that lead, and how much time will they be there? And ultimately, it's just a simple division. If, let's say, your monthly rent is $3,000, so $36,000 a year, and they're on average going to likely be there for 2 years, so let's say $72,000. So $72,000, and you've spent, let's say, 10 hours with them. 10 hours sort of cultivating that lead, moving them through the buying cycle and that process. So you can take $72,000 divided by 10, $7,200. So that's sort of the return on an hourly rate from that perspective. So that's just a very good basic. Basically, it's just a division. It's based on amount divided by hours. It's based on amount divided by leads. But whatever it is, you need to know those two variables to be able to know what that is. Kathy asks, you mentioned that it is important to be on the first page of Google. Is there information on the psyche of people searching for senior living? My thought is that searching for senior living is different than other services, and then one would be compelled to look as far and wide as they could for the best solution. Are there studies on the mindset specifically of people searching for senior living? It's an excellent question, Kathy. Certainly, I can certainly look into that specifically. Basically, if I'm understanding it correctly, and please tell me if I'm not, but basically that, okay, fine, everybody wants to be on the first page of Google, but given how important senior living is, after all, you're not buying a widget, you're not buying a pen or a mug or a car, as expensive and important as they are, you're putting yourself or your loved one in a place where that's so important. So after all, you're not just going to quit after the first page. And obviously to a degree, exactly, yes, perfect, great. So of course, that's true to an extent. I mean, I'm use the term obviously a lot, but I think it's self-evident that you're right. In a situation where something is so important, so intimately connected to who I am, I'm going to be spending more time and putting more energy into something like that. That's true. At the same time, if I go into Google and I type in, Minneapolis assisted living, there are probably 10 pages of homes like that. I may never get to that 10th page because I might call the first one. I might spend 3 hours on the phone or 2 hours on the phone with their sales rep. I might go in and who knows, even though I like to think of myself as a logical person who's going to make a methodical and smart decision, Kathy, the truth is that we're all susceptible to salespeople. We go into a car dealership thinking, you know what, I'm spending $20,000, $30,000 on a car. I'm going to outsmart this guy. He's not going to give me, a $3,000, rust inhibitor. I'm not going to be taken in. The end of the night, I come in and I spent $30,000 and $2,000 was on a rust inhibitor. So we like to think of ourselves as more savvy, I think, than we really are. So again, I can certainly look into this for you, Kathy, in terms of the psychology of it. But in our experience, from a technological and Google perspective, is that people will often be taken by what's most available. So if there's 10 results on the first page of Google, I'm probably not going to be calling 40 different homes. I'd like to think that I will, and I'd like to think that I would do that. But the truth is that by the time I've talked to 5 or 6 different homes, I'm exhausted, and I know that Brad, that sales guy there, he was really he was really good, showed well. Why do I need to keep looking? So I think that's probably the basic there. And we actually have time for one more for Daryl. So thank you, Daryl, for your question. What is the measurement of too much content marketing versus brand marketing? So maybe Daryl, just while I'm giving a little bit of a preface, if maybe you can flesh that a little bit more. I think what you're asking is how much energy, both time and money, should I put into content marketing versus brand marketing. Where should I how should I prioritize one or the other? How should I focus one or the other? Again, Daryl, if you're still there, if you can maybe extrapolate a little bit what you mean by that. What I understand there and how I would answer for that is that I would see brand marketing as more comprehensive, as more holistic. There you are on target. Perfect. I'm on the ball today. Great. Thank you, Daryl. So I would, again, not knowing your business as well as obviously you do, my approach and the way that we approach at retirementhomes.com for senior living clients is that, and again, sort of my personal flair, if you will, is that I like to think of things as brand marketing as everything should be playing into that consistent brand. So remember I talked about that voice? So, when I go on your website, when I hear your print collateral, am I hearing Betty White? She's 92 years old. She's looking great. But is Betty White my audience? Maybe that's exactly who I want. I want an older, strong, funny, independent woman who doesn't seem to age. Maybe she's a vampire or whatever it is. She doesn't seem to age. Maybe that's my target audience. So that's the branding. It's the branding of what's my voice, what are the, on a more sort of rudimentary level, what are the keywords I'm using? What's the voice I'm doing? What are the imagery I'm doing? When people think of me, what's my unique value proposition? So that's how I would approach sort of brand marketing. With respect to content marketing, that I would consider would be subsumed under brand marketing. So again, depending on the type of care type, maybe podcast is probably, for most in senior living, podcast is probably not going to be, just as an example, a good fit. It's probably just a little bit too advanced. The YouTube videos might be good, depending on the type. Depending on the type of care you have, demographics, economics, race, age, and so on. It might be, who are your media stakeholders? What are your community organizers? What kind of information do you have on your website? Again, if you are, let's say, a skilled nursing home or a CCRC or Alzheimer's memory care, and your average resident is 90 years old, but your prospects are 55 to 65. So maybe for them, they would really appreciate infographics on your website. It could be something about how more care, how a higher level of care increases length of stay, or use the term life expectancy. How people live longer with more care. Now, an infographic probably wouldn't work well in an independent living community where the average age is 75, where yes, these people are healthy, but infographics are just a little bit foreign. So I use that as an example. Excuse me. And again, we do, with our clients, we do a lot of these kinds of audits. But really, what I mean by that is that content marketing is one tool in your toolbox, along with inbound marketing, along with social media marketing. But the way we consider, and what you mean, I think, sort of, what you mean by brand marketing is that should sort of be your unique value proposition, your voice, and ultimately how you're being perceived by your prospective move-ins as well as stakeholders as well. So again, I want to thank everyone. That's all the time we have today for questions. My contact info is there, and yes, a couple of people have asked. The slide deck will be sent out. The recording will be sent out, and definitely happy to engage with anyone else who wants to ask any more questions there. And if you have any more questions, please contact me there. That's all the time we have for today. We will be back next month in April for another webinar, so please tell your friends. Please make sure to catch us for that. And again, that's it for retirementhomes.com for today. Have a wonderful day and all the best.